All right. Looks like we good. Just gonna check this out. Make sure my sound sounds good. Make sure this sounds good. Check this out. Make sure my sound sounds good. All right. Yeah, I hear myself loud and proud, loud and clear. All right. So basically, what I wanted to do this stream on, I figured since this last one worked really well, I would basically just live stream my thoughts on the New Year's cards. Just do it live, man. A little bit easier than having to record, upload it, and all that stuff. Be just kind of a quicker in and out type deal. So basically, I wanted to focus this on the New Year's cards coming up. Got a couple of big cards on December 30th and December 31st. Typically, every year in Japan, you got usually a couple of big cards on New Year's Eve leading into New Year's Day, as well as on December 30th. Matter of fact, it seems like the last few years, the cards on December 30th have been a little bit better even than the ones on December 31st themselves. But I mean, this has become a bit of a tradition, not even just in boxing, but in combat sports. I know K1 and Pride Fighting used to have some big cards, some big combat sports cards on New Year's Eve holiday. So with this, I just wanted to get into it, man. So let's see. The first card I want to talk about is the one that's actually taking place in Japan this year because, like I said before, typically these are two fight cards in Japan. This year, it's going to be one in Tokyo, Japan, as well as one in Macau, China. So basically, in Tokyo, Japan, on Sunday, December 30th, out of the Ota City General Gymnasium in Tokyo, Japan, we're going to have a three-fight card. It's going to feature in the opening bout Takuma Inoue taking on Tasana Salapat, aka Petch Chitpattanna of Thailand. For the interim WBC Bantamweight Championship, it's 118 pounds. And the next bout after that is going to be Ken Shiro defending his WBC Light Flyweight Championship at 108 pounds versus Saul Juarez, a former title challenger. As well as in the main event, Masayuki Ito defending his newly gained WBO Super Featherweight Championship against the undefeated contender Evgeny Chuprakov. So this looks like a pretty good card. I'll start with the first fight, Takuma Inoue versus Tasana Salapat. Good fight. Takuma Inoue is a guy that's somewhat living in the shadow of his brother Naoya. He's not as explosive as his brother. He's not as big of a star as his brother. He's a very skilled fighter, definitely. Fights with a lot of tenacity, a lot of heart. He's a guy that he goes out there and he looks to like do damage to you. He's a fighter. He has a fighter spirit. He has a fighter's mentality in there. Taking on Petch Chitpattanna. Chitpattanna. I'm sorry. Chitpattanna is another guy, with a definitely a fighting spirit, as many fighters from Thailand tend to have just by virtue of the fighting culture there. A guy that's 48-0, interestingly enough, 48-0 with 33 knockouts. By comparison, Takuma Inoue is 12-0 with 3 knockouts. So, like I said before, Inoue isn't necessarily a huge puncher the same way that his brother is. Unfortunately for him, I guess Naoya might have been the one that inherited all the power from their parents. But this is going to be a good fight. The winner of this fight is almost like in kind of a mini tournament. They would kind of advance to the finals of this little mini tournament that the WBC is having, whereby Rashid Warren is going to be fighting against Nordine Ubali next month in January for the full WBC title. So basically, the winner of Warren versus Ubali is going to fight the winner of this fight, and then eventually, probably the winner altogether of all those fights will most likely eventually fight against Luis Neri, who of course had the WBC Bantamweight Championship until he lost it on the scales in the rematch that he had against Shinsuke Yamanaka after the pretty well publicized controversy of their first fight, whereby he had I guess allegedly tested positive for performance enhancing drugs, or I guess he did test positive. But he wound up not losing the belt in spite of that. But he did get banned by the Japanese Boxing Commission after initially testing positive for their first fight, and then, of course, missing weight completely for their second fight and knocking him out in both fights, incidentally. But that is the first fight of the December 30th card. The second fight is going to be Ken Shiro, as I mentioned before, defending his WBC light flyweight championship against Saul Juarez. Ken Shiro, personally, I consider him the number 2 fighter at 108 pounds, right behind Hekkie Budler, former unified champion Hekkie Budler, not unified anymore because he did drop his IBF belt. But Ken Shiro has come along very, very nicely with a number of very good wins. 2 solid wins over Ganigan Lopez, a solid victory over Pedro Guevara, and a very solid victory over Emiliano Melindo in his most recent fight, whereby he was able to actually stop Melindo. He was able to TKO him in what was frankly a bit of a boxing lesson. He looked very, very skilled in that fight. That was actually on the undercard of Naoya Inoue's impressive victory over Juan Carlos Payano, where, like, Shiro looked like he was threatening to steal the show with just how, quick and flashy he was looking against Melindo, and how well he was able to not just outbox but beat up Melindo to the point where they actually chose to stop the fight between rounds. Or actually, no. I think they stopped it a little bit late in the fight. Maybe not between rounds. I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of like blinking on exactly how the fight was stopped. If I remember right, I think it was like stopped on just the accumulation of cuts, essentially, that Melindo had suffered due to the damage that he had faced. Although Melindo is a guy that does have quite a bit of wear and tear on him, does have quite a bit of scar tissue on him, has been cut numerous times in previous fights. And has been in a lot of wars. Like I've mentioned before with Melindo, had wars with Taguchi, with Budler, with Tirapangu Taida, aka Falan Sakridin Jr., with Maximino Flores, with Martin Teca Puebla, with Saul Juarez, Juarez, the guy that's going to be fighting Ken Shiro, kind of up here, with Juan Francisco Estrada. Melindo has a very, very good record of names, even though he didn't necessarily win all of those fights. He actually lost most of them. But in spite of all that, Ken Shiro here against Saul Juarez himself. Saul Juarez is going to put up a pretty interesting challenge because of the fact that he's a very quick fighter, very fleet-footed, very quick with his hands, very quick with his feet, relatively explosive. The only thing is Juarez is pretty tiny. He's actually a pretty small guy. He's actually even small for 108 pounds, if you can believe that. A little guy. He's barely 5 feet tall, if that. He's maybe a shade over 5 feet tall. Whereas Ken Shiro is 5'5", relatively tall for the weight class. At least he's listed at 5'5". I'm not sure if he's quite 5'5". He looks a little bit more closer to 5'4" to my eyes. But that's just the way that I see it with Shiro. But Shiro is definitely the bigger man between these two guys. He's a relatively heavy puncher, but he's not necessarily a puncher outright. He has a bit of a boxer puncher mentality, and Juarez is quick enough that I think he can actually give Shiro a lot of trouble. Just the speed that he possesses. Shiro did have quite a bit of trouble against Pedro Guevara, I think, due to Guevara's hand speed. I think Shiro tends to be a little bit used to being the slightly quicker fighter in most of his bouts, and I think the fact that Guevara was quicker to the first shot, especially with his jab, with a very sharp jab, was giving him a lot of trouble. So I could see Juarez giving Shiro a good bit of trouble leading into this fight. Overall, though, I do think that Shiro will win the fight. Even though he did have trouble with Guevara early on, his extremely heavy body work paid hella dividends in that fight, and he was able to tire Guevara out enough that he was able to retain his title with a majority decision victory over Guevara. Similarly, he had a very close decision win to actually win his title in the first place against Ganigan Lopez, another rival of Guevara's, interestingly enough. But in the rematch with Lopez, he was able to pretty cleanly and comprehensively defeat him with just a vicious body attack that ended in a knockout, with Shiro just bludgeoning Lopez's liver side of his abdomen into submission, essentially. A lot of good body work he did against Melindo too. Even though Melindo was actually the shorter fighter, he did some good body work against him that was able to soften him up for the headshots that would follow up with, and of course, cut him open. So, him against Juarez, it's going to be interesting because I'm not sure if we're necessarily going to see that extended body attack from Shiro, or we might, because, like I did say, Juarez is a very fleet-footed guy, a guy that likes to switch stances, likes to be real tricky, real rambunctious, real unorthodox, and is like looking to try and improvise at any given moment with exactly what he's going to be doing. So I think Shiro might have his hands full against Juarez. But I do think that Shiro is a fighter that's very capable of making adjustments. He has a very good jab himself, very quick jab, very sharp. And he's also very good at, throwing power shots, leading with power shots, leading with the left hook. And, just the body attack is nasty when he chooses to go after it. I do think that Shiro can sometimes make the mistake of trying to, outbox a guy with headshots. And if he does that, I think Juarez will have the advantage there. But if Shiro was able to mix it up, head body, I do think that he'll eventually wear Juarez down enough that he could potentially score a late stoppage or otherwise win a relatively clear decision, in spite of the fact that I do think that Juarez will be competitive throughout the entirety of the fight. But that's going to be that. And then in the main event, Masayuki Ito versus Evgeny Chuprakov. Chuprakov, I haven't necessarily seen a tremendous amount of footage of. He's had pretty much all of his fights in Russia, just about. Has had a couple of his earlier fights in the U.S., but most of his career has taken place in Russia. So this is one of the rare instances where he's actually fought outside of the country. But whereas with Ito, I'm a little bit more familiar with. Of course, he had most of his own fights in Japan primarily, and then finally ventured out over to Florida in the United States to take on Christopher Diaz. And Christopher Diaz was a guy that, as an undefeated prospect, was probably one of Top Rank's most prized prospects, frankly. He was a guy that a lot of people were thinking, might be an eventual major contender, major challenger to the likes of Vasyl Lomachenko at some point in the future. He was looking very good, very explosive, a good, quick-handed, quick-footed, power punching kind of boxer puncher, and it was Christopher Diaz. But Masayuki Ito was able to pretty much go out there and outdo Diaz in pretty much every facet of what Diaz normally is able to do to his opponents. He was able to outbox him. He was able to maintain and measure distance. He was able to outbrawl with him on the inside. Was able to hammer him to the body, hammer him to the head, and just accumulate quite a bit of damage on Christopher Diaz. And what was really an impressive victory, a bit of a coming out party also for Masayuki Ito, as a visiting fighter, pretty much getting kind of brought in to lose, so to speak, although it was, of course, a mandatory because it was for the title that Vasyl Lomachenko had vacated in his effort to move up and, of course, eventually dethrone Jorge Linares at lightweight. So he vacated the WBO 130-pound title, and Diaz and Ito were the top two fighters to vie for it, and Ito came out on top in that fight. So, I mean, just looking at it, I do think that Chuprakov is a legitimate challenger for Ito from what I've seen of him. But ultimately, I do think that Ito is a pretty impressive fighter. I do think that he is a legitimate world champion. I do think that he is somebody that can compete with maybe the better known names out west, out here in the United States and such. I do think that he can compete with Tevin Farmer and Tank Davis and Miguel Berchelt. I do think I wouldn't necessarily put him quite on their level in terms of overall ability or accomplishment yet, of course. But and not to mention Alberto Machado, I forgot to mention him, the real WBA champion, the real WBA super featherweight champion. But I do think that Ito is, even if not necessarily on their level in terms of achievement, I do think that his ability-wise, I think he's close to that. I think he's close to that strata, and I think he would be a very good fight for any of them. But of course, he does have to get past Chuprakov in order to get there. So that's going to do it for the December 30th card. I'm going to move over here, over to the December 31st cards. I'm going to take a look at it, give you guys a quick overview of how I see the fights. And this, interestingly enough, is going to be a 5-fight card. However, the 3 main events are going to be what I mainly focus on. The first of the 3 co-main events out of Macau, China, is going to be Moruti Mthalane of South Africa defending his IBF flyweight championship versus Masahiro Sakamoto of Japan. Masahiro Sakamoto 13-1 with 9 knockouts, and Moruti Mthalane 36-2 with 24 knockouts. Mthalane's coming off a very good victory, a bit of a comeback victory over Muhammad Wasim after for a few years of kind of bad mismanagement. The fact that he had vacated his belt that would eventually be won by, I'm not wrong, the IBF flyweight title, would become the IBO champion, interestingly enough, and then would eventually vacate that for whatever reason. I know he was having some kind of promotional and managerial issues. I know there's been a number of issues with a lot of the managers and promoters in South Africa. I'm not necessarily an expert out at that, but I do know, just kind of generally speaking, that there has been some issues that have, I think, held up some of their better fighters in terms of their career progress. And Mthalane was an unfortunate result of a lot of that stuff. So I am looking forward to seeing him back in action. He put on a great fight against Muhammad Wasim. He was able to win the unanimous decision in what was honestly, to me, that was one of the fights of the year, him and Wasim. Very good, highly skilled bout between the two. A bit of a jab fest. It was definitely more of a technical fighter's fight. A boxing purist kind of technical fight. But it was a really good fight between the two. Mthalane actually did go down in the 11th round, but he was able to finish relatively strongly, and he actually started quite strongly. Wasim kind of started slow. Mthalane was able to rack up several rounds early on, was able to bank him, and even though Wasim was coming on really, really strong and heavy, late in the fight, Mthalane just had too much of a lead that Wasim wasn't able to quite make the gap close for himself. So Mthalane was able to win the vacant IBF title. That was, interestingly enough, vacated by Donnie Nietes, who's going to be in the main event that I'll talk about in just a second. He's going to be fighting against Masahiro Sakamoto. Sakamoto, like I said before, is 13-1. That one singular loss was a majority decision loss to Sho Kimura, the former WBO flyweight champion. So that's not necessarily a loss to entirely be ashamed of. Arguably it's not even necessarily a loss. He could probably say that he really deserves to be an undefeated fighter at this moment. But Sho Kimura, he is a guy that definitely emerged in the last year and a half as one of the top fighters at flyweight. The fact that he was able to stop Zhou Shiming, the fact that he was able to stop former WBC champ Toshi Igarashi, scored a nasty knockout over Froilan Saludar, and then just recently this year in another fight of the year candidate, probably the fight of the year, frankly, lost a close, the very tight majority decision to Kosei Tanaka, who's to me one of the premier kind of pound for pound rising fighters in the sport of boxing at this moment. So Masahiro Sakamoto is fighting at a very high level, even though he doesn't necessarily have a tremendous amount of fights, and even not necessarily like a tremendous amount of fights against top level tier opposition each time in and time out. So I mean that could be looked at one of two ways. You could say that he doesn't necessarily have a lot of elite level experience, but you can also say that he doesn't necessarily have a lot of wear and tear on him. So it could go either way with regards to him. Overall, though, Mthalane is a very good fighter, a guy that has a very good record behind him. He does have wins over John Riel Casimero, over Zolani Tete, over Julio Cesar Miranda, over Muhammad Wasim. Very good fighters, in like very different in style from one another. So ultimately, I do favor him to beat Sakamoto. I do think it's going to be a close fight, though. Sakamoto, from what I've seen of him, is a guy that can fight at a very high tempo, very high pace. Can throw a lot of punches and bunches. Mthalane, though, I do think is very capable of dealing with high pressure. Guy with a very good jab, very good high tight guard, almost like a bit of a Winky Wright-esque style that he tends to have. He kind of crowds you, is able to out jab you, and he's able to crowd you on the inside and almost like crowd you on the outside too. It's kind of an interesting style that he has, able to just kind of walk you down and just punish you with just short, very, very precise straight shots up the middle. But that's going to be that first fight. I do favor Mthalane by a close decision. Hekkie Budler versus Hiroto Kyoguchi for Budler's WBA light flyweight title. Of course, he did vacate his IBF title due to the fact that, basically due to the fact that he wanted to fight Kyoguchi. His mandatory for the IBF title was Felix Alvarado, who's a guy from Nicaragua, very, very heavy-handed puncher, probably one of the premier punchers at the low weights, if not one of the hardest punchers ever, probably at 108 pounds, period. So I do think that Budler probably made a relatively wise financial decision to go after the higher risk, not necessarily higher reward, but not necessarily lower risk fight in Hiroto Kyoguchi, because Hiroto Kyoguchi himself is a very heavy-handed fighter. 8 knockouts and 11 wins compared to Hekkie Budler's 10 knockouts and 32 wins, with of course 3 losses. Hekkie Budler also did lose one of his fights to Byron Rojas, and a big part of the reason why Byron Rojas was able to beat him was just the fact that Rojas gave him just high pressure every single second of every single minute of every round of that fight. Rojas was on top of Budler. He fought him like the way that Marcos Maidana fought against Floyd Mayweather in their first fight. He was just on top of him, on top of him, on top of him. He didn't give Budler any room to breathe, any room to think, any room to try and be crafty and tricky the way that Budler tries to do. He's a very quick-handed, very quick-footed fighter, a guy that likes to kind of, he likes to kind of angle you off, kind of hit you, with a nice 2-3 punch combination, boom, angle you off, step to the side, continuously giving you all different kinds of looks with head feints, with shoulder feints, with, punch feints, and then, throwing his combos thereafter, and then, looking to counter, sometimes, stepping back, jumping to the side. Very, very well versed and versatile fighter. And a guy who is, of course, as Rojas showed, vulnerable to somebody that's able to just push him right back, and just give him heavy pressure with quick closing speed. And Hiroto Kyoguchi is a guy that definitely can provide that quick closing speed. Interestingly enough, actually, I don't know if it was yesterday or maybe in the last few days, there was an open sparring session, an open sparring exhibition between Hiroto Kyoguchi and a fighter that I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Shiro. Because of the fact that they're both fighting on these New Year's cards, they decided to have an open sparring exhibition. I guess they were sparring against each other in order to prepare for their respective opponents. And Kyoguchi was right on top of Kenshiro. Shiro was able to land a number of shots on the outside on Kyoguchi, but Kyoguchi was showing that he's bringing his power up to 108 full bore. Of course, there's only a few pounds between them, and Kyoguchi was probably even cutting a bit of weight, to make 105 in the first place. As most fighters, 99% of fighters tend to do just in general. You know what I mean? Even if you're a guy that is quote unquote small for 105, you're probably gonna try to gain a certain degree of mass in order to maximize your athletic potential in general. And then, of course, cut water in order to make weight. And, just like I'm saying, maximize your potential ability and aggressiveness and explosiveness. And Kyoguchi, I think, is going to provide a very good fight against Hekkie Budler. To me, I think this has a fight of the year candidate written all over it between these two. Hekkie Budler looked very impressive in his last fight against Hiroshi Taguchi, and what was another fight of the year candidate. Very, very close tit-for-tat type fight where Taguchi was able to hurt Hekkie Budler quite badly, was able to drop him late in the fight. But Budler was able to just kind of flummox Taguchi with his hand speed and his foot speed, and being able to just combo in, jump out, combo in, jump out, and he was able to score a number of points against Taguchi. And actually, he was lighting Taguchi up early on in that fight. If Budler had a bit more power, he might have been able to really hurt Taguchi and potentially even get him out of there late. But he isn't necessarily a big puncher. Taguchi is a very durable guy though too. He's one of only a couple of people that actually went the distance against Naoya Inoue. This was, of course, back when Naoya Inoue was at 108 pounds before he started rising up the division, started scoring one-punch knockouts and things of that nature. But still, he's a durable fighter. So for Hekkie Budler to have made an impression on him like that, just with the shocking level of his hand speed, I think shows where a lot of Budler's abilities and his advantages lie. But like I said, Kyoguchi is going to be very troublesome. He's a guy that can close the distance very fast. I forgot to mention even that Hiroto Kyoguchi's nickname is Chocolatito. They call him Chocolatito because of the fact that he somewhat idolized Roman Gonzalez to such a degree that he largely styled his own boxing style, his own rhythm and everything after Roman Gonzalez. So he fights in a very similar manner to him. That kind of, high guard, side to side, peekaboo, roll in, roll out, roll to the left side, roll to the right side. And, almost like that Dempsey roll. If any of you guys have ever seen Hajime no Ippo, the boxing anime. He's a very good fighter, very impressive, very heavy-handed, very powerful. Has scored a couple of nice knockouts recently. Pretty nasty beatdown TKO over Carlos Buitrago, as well as a 4th-round TKO in his most recent fight against Thibaut Monabessa. Just a heavy-handed, high-pressure fighter, man. And I think him versus Budler is just going to be a great fight. Overall, I think that Kyoguchi is kind of primed to perform, though. At his age versus Budler's age, Budler's a guy that I think is working so heavily off of reflexes that I just get the sense that he'll probably be up on the cards early on against Kyoguchi because of the fact that, he has that reflexive advantage, because of the fact that he's just that tick quicker. He'll be quicker to one spot, to the left, to the right than Kyoguchi will be. And it'll take probably Kyoguchi a couple of rounds to be able to adjust and be able to start cutting off the ring on Budler. But once he starts cutting off the ring, I think it's gonna be a hell of a fight. I think Budler's gonna start, trying to throw in combination, doing a little bit of that kind of shoe shine Sugar Ray Leonard type stuff. But Kyoguchi, he's a guy that once he gets that foot forward, much like Roman Gonzalez, his namesake, he's a buzzsaw. He's a buzzsaw. He's cutting right through you. He's perpetual motion. His volume isn't quite as high as Roman Gonzalez, so I kind of hesitate to compare him as much as you might want to, due to the fact that he kind of took on the nickname. But he's a guy that's still developing, so who knows? Maybe and this is the fight where he will show more of that buzzsaw style that Roman was very well known for. But that remains to be seen. Overall, though, I do think that Kyoguchi's primed for a big victory. Of course, he vacated his own IBF strawweight title to move up to take this opportunity, and I think he's going to capitalize on it. I honestly do think that he's going to capitalize on it. I do think that Budler's going to put up a very good fight, but overall, I just see that Kyoguchi looks ready, man. He looks ready right now. Like I said, in that sparring exhibition that he had against Shiro, he looked damn good. He looked, just the fact that he was able to lay some hands on, an elite fighter of Shiro's caliber, like, tells me that he's ready to roll. He's ready for it, man. And Shiro's a guy that I don't even necessarily consider any tier lower than Hekkie Budler. To me, they're roughly even. And even though Budler to me is the #1 fighter at 108 pounds, mainly by virtue of achievement. Ability-wise, I do think that there are some definite flaws in his overall boxing acumen that can be taken advantage of. And I think that Kyoguchi stylistically is somebody that is just well versed and well primed to be able to take advantage of those holes. Just be able to force him into a firefight. And Budler is a guy that can I think get a little bit in the fighting spirit of things, and maybe start trading when he probably shouldn't do. Like I said, if it hadn't been for him kind of trading late in a fight that he was well up on the cards, he probably would have never got knocked down by Hiroto Taguchi and made that fight closer than it probably should have been. But on to the main event, Donnie Nietes versus Kazuto Ioka for the vacant WBO super flyweight title. This is a title, interestingly enough, that probably should be Donnie Nietes' right now. Frankly, myself and probably most people that actually watched Nietes' fight against Austin Palikte thought that Nietes won the fight. I thought that he won it. To me, that was an 8-round-to-4 fight for Nietes. Somehow the judges scored it in such a way where they were able to salvage a draw out of it. I thought it was a fantastic fight that showcased how a shorter fighter can kind of disarm and outbox a taller fighter, because Austin Palikte had a very definite, clear height and reach advantage over Nietes, but Nietes was able to just use excellent timing, expert timing, and very good jabs and right hands to be able to kind of disarm Palikte and take those advantages away. And matter of fact, even use them against Palikte in certain instances. Palikte definitely put up a very good fight. It was giving Nietes trouble early, but I think once Nietes started to make some adjustments from the mid rounds into the late rounds, he was definitely in control of the fight, even though Palikte was putting up, good resistance, but ultimately to me, and I think to most others, not enough to actually bank the rounds in order to win the fight. But in spite of the fact that it was scored a draw, the WBO did not order a rematch. I think they kind of got the hint, and it felt like Nietes was really the guy deserving of the victory. So he, incidentally, is getting another shot at the same title. And Kazuto Ioka, coming off of a very impressive victory himself over McWilliams Arroyo, is going to be the receptor of, quote-unquote, mandatory shot at the belt in kind of a do-over for Donnie Nietes. And what this has kind of turned into is a pretty interesting situation where you have Donnie Nietes, who was a WBO strawweight champion, a WBO light flyweight champion, and an IBF flyweight champion, taking on Kazuto Ioka. And Ioka was a WBA strawweight champion, a WBC strawweight champion, a WBA light flyweight champion, and a WBA flyweight champion. And now he's, of course, competing against Nietes for the super flyweight title. So basically, you have a situation where you have two guys that, not unlike what Roman Gonzalez recently did, were champions at 105, 108, and 112 pounds. And now they're competing against each other.
and whomever wins this will be only the third fighter in history after Leo Gomez and Roman Gonzalez to become a full-weight champion from 105 to 115 pounds. So they'd be only the third fighter in history to do it. And, very major stakes for both of these guys. And interestingly enough, these are two guys that have both kind of shared divisions with the likes of Roman Gonzalez in the past. Both have missed opportunities to fight Roman Gonzalez in the past. But they're here against each other, fighting each other. It's an interesting fight, though. They do have a common opponent. They both fought against, I'm trying to remember his name now, Juan Carlos Revico. Ioka had 2 fights against Revico. The first one was a majority decision win, where he didn't look quite as impressive as he tends to. Second one was a more conclusive 11th round TKO over him, although Revico was giving him a little bit of trouble in that fight too. Donnie Nietes pretty handily outboxed and then eventually knocked out Revico, and what looked like a bit of a pedestrian performance in, I think, was his HBO debut, if I remember correctly. But Ioka is a guy that supposedly was having a lot of outside the ring distractions. He, funny enough, retired about a year. What was it? About a year and a half ago, he retired, and then he unretired. What was this, about like 9 months later? Because of the fact that he was inspired by the Superfly cards that HBO was having in the US and in LA. And he felt like, hey, man, I want to get back into it. The thing is, he's a guy that had recently just gotten married, and I know he was having some issues with his family, with his dad, with his uncle, who, interestingly, are the ones that are basically guiding his career, managing his career. So, I mean, just when you have that overall mix of things, I think that could lead to some maybe some bad habits outside of the ring. And ultimately, Ioka decided to, take a seat for a little bit and, kind of regenerate his interest back in the sport. Sometimes certain fighters, I think, maybe they need that break. And I think he himself is one of those guys that kind of needed that. And, like I've said in the past, the fact that he's such a big ratings draw in Japan, the biggest ratings draw, even bigger than Naoya Inoue, I think afforded him that to a degree. And I really do mean afforded him that, because of the fact that he has made quite a bit of money in the sport of boxing. And so he was able to, take a little bit of a break and not have it necessarily affect him. But in his comeback performance against McWilliams Arroyo, he looked very impressive. Pretty handily outboxed. Arroyo put up a very good fight, but Ioka was just too good, man. It was like anything that Arroyo was able to give him, Ioka had a solution for. Ioka was able to drop Arroyo in the 3rd round. He cut him open, and he pretty handily and decisively decisioned Arroyo in a way that really only Roman Gonzalez had kind of duplicated. But previous to that. So here against Nietes, I think he's definitely primed to perform. Nietes is a guy that's that's relatively consistent. I mean, he like fight in and fight out. He's been relatively impressive to me throughout most of his career. There's only a couple of fights where you could see where he showed some flaws in his game, but then again, those were fights against top level opponents that were showing those flaws. Your Manuel Vargas's, your Moises Fuentes's, your Chivas Rodriguez's. But here against Kazuto Ioka, he's fighting another fighter, not only of that caliber, but even beyond that caliber. Ioka has shown himself to be beyond the caliber of those guys, where those guys were able to excel in maybe one division at 105 or 108, but Ioka has managed to excel in several divisions, across several divisions, and in relatively dominant fashion against top-level fighters across those divisions, in much the same way Nietes has, and in certain instances, maybe even beyond the way that Nietes has had. This is a really good fight. Nietes, I think, has a very good jab, just like his off-rhythm, off-center jab, I think can give Ioka a lot of trouble, but Ioka's own jab is very good. I think Ioka's a jabbing machine. I think Ioka's body attack is going to play a big role here, especially the left hook to the body, kind of a patented punch of his. Right hand to the body is very nice as well. Nietes is a very good kind of looping overhand right as well, kind of almost like a slapping kind of cross right hand. That's gonna, I think, play into the fight. I think it's a really good fight. It could be a technical fight. It could be a war. Ultimately, I do think that these guys' technical abilities, though, cancel each other out enough that the early rounds will be an interesting kind of technical battle, kind of a tit-for-tat, like one guy scores a couple of good shots and the other guy scores right back a couple of good shots, and then it'll like eventually probably devolve beyond the 6th round into just an all-out war between the two, because I think ultimately these guys are as evenly matched as it gets from a technical standpoint, and I think really the physicality is going to play a bigger role here than the technicalities of boxing. In the technicalities of boxing, I think the fact that Nietes is just off rhythm enough that he can be unorthodox. But Ioka's such a very good technical boxer himself, a textbook technical boxer when he chooses to use those skills. That I think he can solve a lot of the problems that Nietes tends to pose for most of his opponents. And from a physical standpoint, Nietes has kind of an explosive punch, especially with his right hand. Ioka, I think, is just naturally heavy-handed, where he can hit you hard with both hands. Not necessarily explosive outright, but I mean, he's just, like I said, heavy-handed, where even if you see the punch coming, he's going to hurt you with it. And he did actually hide his punches really nicely against the Royal. Just looking at their most recent fights, even though Nietes looked very impressive against Palikta, I thought Ioka looked even more impressive against Arroyo. And so that leads me to slightly favoring Ioka in this fight. Just very, very slightly. But, I mean, this is about as 50-50 as it gets in the sport. This is about as 50-50 as it really gets. So to me, this is like a 51-49 in favor of Ioka. If that. Maybe a 55.5 versus 49.5 in favor of Ioka. But I have no doubt that this is going to be a really good fight. Definitely a classic for the super flyweight division. In spite of the fact that HBO is not going to be having any Superfly cards as far as I understand it anytime soon, the super flyweight division is going to carry on and continue, and I think deliver us some really good fights. And I think that this is another one in a line of really solid fights that we've had in the last couple of years between Gonzalez and Cuadras, Gonzalez and Srisaket and Estrada. Cuadras and Estrada, and Ioka and Nietes, man. I think they're going to perform and they're going to put on a great show. And fights like this, fights like Kyoguchi versus Budler, fights like pretty much all the fights that I mentioned, but those two in particular is a big part of the reason why I get a little bit frustrated sometimes when people try to make boxing year-end awards and the year hasn't even ended yet. And I understand from the standpoint of the fact that like you want to try and get it done before the new year starts. But at the same time, if the year isn't over and there's still really good fights to be had, really good high-level elite championship-level fights to be had, I mean, to me, it only makes sense to hold up, especially because you never know when you might get a knockout of the year. You never know when you may get a fight of the year. You may never know if there might be a guy in the running as fighter of the year that might really put themselves over the top with a tremendous victory at the very tail end of the year. And some of these guys, to me, like I mentioned before, they put on fight of the year candidates already. Hekkie Budler versus Yorich Taguchi was a fight of the year candidate. Moruti Mthalane versus Muhammad Wasim. Not necessarily a fight of the year candidate, but definitely an honorable mention. A very good fight between those two. Very highly paced, hotly contested fight between those two. And like I mentioned before, man, Donnie Nietes and Ioka, the winner of that fight is going to be only the third man in boxing history to pull off the kind of, I don't know what goes beyond a trifecta or a quadrifecta. The quadrifecta of world championship wins from 105 to 115 after Leo Gomez and Roman Gonzalez. So I'm really looking forward to these cards. I hope you guys are too. Let me check out the chat real quick. I see McGregor Boxing Stars in there saying what's up to me. I see Finksgur that saying big up. Yeah, big up back to both of you guys. And I think I'm going to close this one up for right now just because I wanted to kind of keep it short and sweet. Keep it to these New Year's cards. Let's see. Finksgur saying any U.S. networks that broadcast these fights are just stream. Oh, yeah. I probably should have mentioned that altogether. Matter of fact, let me take a look right now. Matter of fact, because I'm not even sure if maybe the Zone or Asian Boxing have the rights to either of these cards or anything of that nature. To my knowledge, no. But I am definitely going to be doing a live stream for the December 30th card. The December 31st might be a little bit tougher. But December 30th, I'm definitely doing a stream for that one. But I'm trying to check it out and see See what it looks like, because I know one of them is going to be on Fuji, if I remember right. I think the December 31st card is going to be on Fuji alongside the Floyd Mayweather versus Tenshin Nasukawa exhibition, the supposed exhibition. But let me see here. Let me see here. Let's see. Yeah, see the Nietes. Yeah, see the Nietes Ioka card should be on the 31st on Fuji TV alongside Nasukawa and Mayweather. So for sure, I'll be able to provide a stream for that. If you guys want to check it out, I'll definitely drop the link on the night of, or I guess the morning of for me. Be early in the morning. But let me think here. It's gonna be the Masayuki Ito card. Masayuki Ito. I don't know if they might have anything on there. All right, I'm looking at the Asian Boxing Info website. Let's take a look. Okay, never mind. You know what? The Fuji TV card is going to be the Ito card. So that one's going to be on Fuji TV. So yeah, for sure, I'm going to have a stream for that one. Let me see. Let me see what the Nietes one is going to be though. Next thing, I haven't spoken to Asian Boxing on Twitter recently, but I'm sure he'll be able to let me know if there's any coverage from him as far as the Nietes and Ioka or the Budler Kyoguchi fights are concerned. Because I know last year recently they were able to get the rights to a couple of these fights. All right, let me find. I'm checking out the news articles real quick to see if I can find anything in particular on these guys. On the television broadcasting, because I've found them on here in the past. Oh, that's interesting. Takuma Inoue was sparring with Shingo Wake. And Ryosuke Iwasa. Huh? That's good sparring, man. That's very good sparring for him. that's some solid sparring for Inoue, man. So yeah, he's gonna be ready. He's gonna be ready for Chitpattanna, man. I don't even think I gave a prediction for that. I think Inoue is gonna beat Chitpattanna. I think he's ready, man. I think he's ready to step slightly outside of Naoya's shadow and try to be his own champion. You know, make his own way in the sport. Where is Ioka? Where is the Ioka news at, man? Yeah, see, I mean, considering the fact that Shiro had been featured on the undercard of Naoya Inoue's bout last time on DAZN, maybe that was just a package deal because of the fact that Inoue was fighting in the War Boxing Super Series, so they decided to broadcast the whole card. But it's kind of a shame that there was nothing mentioned after that. Because I mean, like I've said in the past, man, if DAZN or ESPN Plus, whoever could get the rights to some of these big fights overseas, I think that'd be a big boon, man. And people will really enjoy them, you know, especially on the holidays. You might be spending some time with your family, or you might not necessarily have anything else to do on that particular day. You know, have a day off from work or what have you, where you can enjoy some boxing, man. Enjoy some boxing in the morning or the afternoon, depending on your time zone, and peep it, man. Let's see what we got. Yeah, for some reason, you know what? I can't find any articles on here that specify the television rights, but okay, the Shiro versus Kyoguchi exhibition was actually a week ago. It was back on December 13th. And see, man, Kyoguchi was looking so good in that exhibition that I just can't not favor him in the fight against Budler. I can't not favor him. He just looked too damn sharp. He looked too damn sharp. Channel 7 in Thailand is going to be showing Petch versus Inoue live. That's not surprising. They're pretty good with regards to showing their fighters fighting overseas and such for big titles. McGregor says Nietes Ioka has fight of the year all over it. Yeah, it does, man. It does. It definitely does. It definitely does. Damn, I wish I could find it, man. I have a feeling that both of these cards are going to be on Fuji. I mean, that's what it looks like to me, though. Yeah, I can't seem to find anything on official means of stateside television rights for these fights. But I'll try and keep an eye out though. I tend to, I think, kind of wait till last minute simply because of the fact that I do have kind of these 24/7 streams that never stop. So I think that's kind of spoiled me in the past, where the last couple of years I've been able to just pretty much show up the day, just check all the channels and be able to find them and then, link them to whoever happens to want to view them. Or in certain instances, like I mentioned before, where if it was an official stream from CBC when Kosei Tanaka was fighting, or Asian boxing in a few months ago, where that spoiled me even more, where I didn't even have to check my traditional sources. But honestly, I don't even care to look further. I don't think I'm gonna find nothing else. Let's see here. McGregor saying, I think Kyoguchi is too green for Budler and it'll show. Budler will beat him up quite bad. Things Girl says, hi, glad I asked. If you can't find it, I definitely won't find it. Yeah, man, I'm sure I'll be able to figure it out in the next couple of days. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on Fuji TV. And if it is, like I said, when I'm doing my live stream and everything, in fact, I might just even do a quick recording video where I just post the link. So then anybody that wants to check it out can watch it in advance. They can already have the link. You just put it in your browser and you check it out. Because like I said, the links that I have, they never go down. So like if you happen to want to watch like some obscure Japanese game show and that channel happens to show it, I mean, yeah, feel free. You can feel free to do so at the end of January or the beginning of March or whenever the heck you want. McGregor Boxing Star says it's easy to find a week out from the fights. Yeah, that's the thing. I'll check with Asian Boxing on Twitter and also with what's his name, Alex Iwamatsu, one of Japan on Twitter. He's another good source of this stuff. But to retort to what you said, McGregor, between Budler and Kyoguchi, I think even though Kyoguchi's green, quote unquote, as you say, I think he's looked really good in some of his fights. The only fight really that's been close for him was against Jose Argumedo, and Jose Argumedo himself is a very big puncher, a very kind of a wild type of a fighter. He's almost comes from that kind of Mayorga Maidana school of, throw something in case it lands. He's throwing from all different kinds of angles, heavy. But he was able to handle him relatively well. He was a very close fight, though. I think that Butler's going to give Kyoguchi a lot of issues, as I mentioned before. I think that just his hand speed, his foot speed. I think Butler is very well experienced, very well versed, very versatile fighter. But overall, Kyoguchi, especially in the exhibition. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put it in the description of this video after this shit uploads. Or actually, I could probably link it to you in the chat right now. Hold on, let me find it real quick. Actually, I have the link right over here. Copy. I'm gonna post this in the chat. I want you to check this out. In particular, McGregor. Right there, Kyoguchi's in the gray trunks and Shiro's in the white and the gold. And Kyoguchi looks sharp, man. Shiro, you'll see Shiro is actually landing a lot of punches on him early on, but Kyoguchi hits him with a body shot that like knocks him halfway across the ring. And he hits him with a couple of shots towards the end of the second round. It was only 2 rounds of sparring, where like he kind of flings Shiro's head back, man. This kid's packing some heat. Kyoguchi's looking to definitely try to live up to that Chocolatito name, and he's looking to do some damage. I'm definitely not counting Budler out. I think Budler's a very talented fighter. But I don't know. Kyoguchi just looks damn good, man. He looks ready. He looks ready to fucking go. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely looking forward to that fight. Oh, okay, you've seen it. Yeah, man. I like how they do that. Over in Japan. Matter of fact, like shoot, you can even see on the stream right there that they put commercials on it, man. They should do that with some of these fighters, like on PBC or whatever, man. ESPN, DAZN, man. Just like if some of these guys aren't necessarily active, or even to help promote a fight, put on like an open sparring exhibition. I understand why some of them don't. I think maybe because they're paranoid about somebody maybe stealing or watching that footage and trying to dissect it and gain a certain game plan from it. Honestly, Budler could probably look at that footage and see that, if he's able to stick and move enough, he's able to combo and move enough. He can definitely score points on Kyoguchi. But I think it's a good way to promote the fight, though. I think it'd be a good way for a lot of fighters like stateside and UK side and all that stuff to be able to promote their fights as well. If you have like kind of just kind of a couple rounds of relatively light sparring to showcase a given fighter's overall talents. Like kind of give a preview of what's to come in the near future. Things Gareth saying those Japanese commercials are one of a kind. Yeah, man, they are. There's some pretty good gems in some of those, man. There's some gems for sure. Over the top. But I'll give it a couple minutes, see if you guys say anything else before I close up shop here. Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to these fights every year. They like Japan don't be letting me down, man. There's some good fights on these. Really good fights. I really hope if Ito gets the victory in his fight against Chuprakov, we get him back over here at stateside, man. I definitely want to see him mix it up with the guys that I mentioned before. I thought that Farmer had some issues with Fonseca yesterday, but he pulled through like a champion should. I've been very critical of Farmer before, but I think Ito would be a really good fight for Farmer or for Davis, for any of those guys, frankly. Go ahead, McGregor. What's the question? I'll wait for you. How was the IBF title on the line in Budler's last fight? Didn't he lose before that, or did his opponent not make weight or something? Budler vacated the IBF title a few months ago because of the fact that, basically because he didn't want to fight Felix Alvarado for a fraction of the money that he would make against Hiroto Kyoguchi, because he was already in negotiations to fight Kyoguchi. Kyoguchi was going to be moving up. He was already planning on moving up, and he had been in negotiations with Budler since the summertime. And Budler's mandatory came up, which was Felix Alvarado, and Budler's promotional company didn't even make an offer. They didn't even bid on it. But Felix Alvarado's actually, I don't even think that dude's Felix Alvarado's manager, but what's his name? Samson Lukowicz. Samson Lukowicz made the high bid for that fight, and it was only like $35,000 total or something like that. No, the IBF was on the line versus Taguchi. It was, yeah, that was a unification. That was a unification between those two. But yeah, that's basically what the situation was, though. He didn't want to fight Alvarado for short money. That's essentially what it was. And like I had mentioned earlier in the stream, to me, it wasn't necessarily a matter of a lower risk, higher reward fight than Kyoguchi. I think it was a even risk, even fight against Kyoguchi. But he lost versus Melindo. No. Budler lost versus Melindo, but Taguchi beat Melindo. So Taguchi had both belts. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Taguchi beat Melindo, so he had both belts. Taguchi was the one that unified, and Budler inherited the unification by beating Taguchi. Yep. There you go, man. Kind of like how, technically Terrence Crawford didn't unify all 4 belts one by one. He beat, what's his face? What's that dude's name, man? Why am I forgetting his name? The dude that beat down your boy Ricky Burns. What the hell's his name, man? Fuck with me now. Julius Ndongo. There you go. Julius Ndongo unified, Terrence Crawford unified, and then they unified further against each other. So he inherited Ndongo's unification as well. So Budler inherited Taguchi's unification. Oh crap! I just lost the chat. What the hell? Hold up! I seen one of them ones in the chat just a second ago. Where the hell did my chat go? Hold on, close some windows here so I can if I can get my bearings back. Yo, what the hell? My dashboard took me away. All right, I'm back. One of them ones. What's happening? my lower weights consultant. Yeah, man. Hey, just in here trying to drop some gems, trying to drop some knowledge about these guys. One of them ones saying Inoue is good, but he has no head movement though. Deadly hands though. Nah, I mean, hey, now he's got some head movement. He's shown it a little bit in the past. Not a tremendous amount, but he hasn't necessarily needed it. To be fair, also. He's been pretty good at being able to kind of block and or catch and counter with his gloves and stuff. But Nair is not the one that's going to be fighting here on December 30th. It's going to be his bro Takuma. But no, I think Nair's got some head movement when he chooses to use it. If you watch some of his sparring exhibitions, like the I see things going. This is calling him one of demons. What do you call it? If you check his sparring exhibition that he did with what's his name? Not Concepcion, with God, that Oscar Valdez beat, man. What was that dude's name? Genesis Cervania. He uses some pretty good head movement against Genesis Cervania. But Genesis Cervania is a bigger guy too. Genesis Cervania is a featherweight. So I think it kind of behooved him to utilize certain skills that he doesn't necessarily show in these fights against guys that just aren't as durable and aren't as physically kind of massive and domineering as a Genesis might be. When I'm saying what's happening, man, got an video that got some info on Ndongo. That's good, man. He needs to get back in there. Can't let these losses get to him, man. That's the thing. a lot of people are quick to like tell a fighter that they should retire just because they have a loss or two or whatever, man. You know, hey, like a lot of fighters have losses. A lot of fighters have losses. A lot of fighters are able to come back from losses too. You know, all you gotta do is look at some of your Salitos and Glenn Johnsons and guys of that nature to see evidence of that. But that's pretty much it, man. I like his cold, emotionless Japanese demeanor. Yeah, man. You know, yeah, you know, he's something else. He's an interesting guy, interesting character. But yeah, I mean, yeah, the way he's been looking recently, though, man. Yeah, he definitely looked looked pretty cold against Payano the way that he did Payano. Very much so. Thanks, Garasolito, the pound for pound great. Yeah, man. That's Loma that's Lomachenko's pops, man. That's Lomachenko's dad. His true dad. His his surrogate dad. Orlando Salido, boy. Orlando Salido is the real most interesting man in the world. He's allegedly a beer thief. He's what the mayor of one of those cities down there in his home state in Mexico. What do you call it? He's a bar fighter. There's some videos on YouTube of him getting into scuffles in bars with his wife. Well, not him with his wife, but him and his wife against other people. You know, that's a ride or die chick that Salido's got, man. Yeah, they get into fights together. They're on some tag team shit, mixed double. Thanks, saying there's not much info on Inoue. I hear you kind of reclusive. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily have a tremendous amount of info on him. I mean, there probably wouldn't be as much over here as there would be in Japan, but even from what I've read, he's not as much of a glitterati type as like say like an Ioka would be, or like a Murata, where he was kind of hanging with kind of big name people over there. Or even like Uchiyama, you know, Uchiyama I think was a bit more like somebody ready to be in front of the cameras and stuff, and he still is. You know, he still is. McGregor says Litos is pound for pound number 323 of all time. Is there a reason for that specific number, or you just saying that? Man, Litos a gangster. I mean, it's kind of only appropriate too. Speaking of Salito, that he went out the way that he did against a fighter that's almost like a younger version of himself in Mickey Roman. You know, I think it's actually kind of a shame that Roman actually had to fight against Burchelt, because I think that Roman probably could have given all those other guys that are titleists at 130 pounds more trouble than he gave Burchelt. Stylistically, I think that he would be an absolute handful for Farmer, for Davis, for Machado, for Ito. I think that Roman would actually give Lomachenko a really good fight. A really good fight. I think because of the fact that he resembles Salito stylistically to such a degree that he would give Lomachenko hell. Yeah, because I put 322 people. I don't always get the win, but when I do, I rob a deli. Stay hungry, my friends. I'm my top 500 pound. Yeah, damn, yo, that's a hell of a list, McGregor. You gotta have a lot of paper for that one. Gotta have a lot of people for that one. Yeah, man, Salito's the most interesting man, man. He's a Uber driver, a fighter. He fucking, he's good friends with gambling referees. I don't know if you guys play many video games, but I don't know if you remember Cody from Final Fight and Street Fighter Alpha. And like in Street Fighter Five, like he becomes the mayor of the city after being a convict. That's Salito. It's like Salito. Salito is a wanted man for stealing a case of beer, and then he gets elected as an official, like a senator or something. Oh man, That's too good, man. That's something. Salito's one of those dudes like you could probably make a movie about that guy. It'd be really interesting. You know who else would actually probably make a good boxing movie about would be Salvador Sanchez. Come to think of it, he would make for a good Salito is the final boss of Streets of Rage. That's good. That's good. Why'd you retract it? Come on. That's pretty funny. Streets of Rage is my shit though, man. Honestly, Streets of Rage, to get off topic a little bit, Streets of Rage 2 in particular, but overall, the Streets of Rage games, but especially 2, has probably one of the best soundtracks ever. Not even of just video games, but ever. Like that's some good ass music. That's some good music right there, man. That's just some good music, period. Like even if you didn't tell somebody that was from a video game, they'd be like, yeah, like yo, this is the shit. Great teacher Onizuka. Can't say I'm familiar with things. Salito is this era Civic. Salito's fight with Turtsak Kokijim is a legendary fight, man. That's a legendary night. You know how HBO used to have legendary nights? That shit was a legendary night. That shit was brutal, man. That was gladiatorial combat between those two. That was an absolute war. His fight with Wang Haya also was really good. I remember watching both those. The saddest thing about both of those fights is the fact that there was a lot of people that had never seen those because of the fact that they were on these kind of obscure like Spanish language TV channels in the US. So like there's a lot of people that haven't seen those two fights they're missing out, man. They're missing out. What's up, Haplo? Missing out like crazy. That shit funny, man. He said Salito is the final boss of Streets of Rage. With a big ass chain. He swings around, whips you with it. I can see him doing some shit like that, matter of fact. Honestly, like, you know what? If I was a fighter on the come up and I was like about to fight, like, you know, I could actually see him doing this. Solitos in the Foot Clan, that's good. I could actually see him doing this, you know, come to think of it. You know how Teofimo Lopez has been calling out Lomachenko and stuff like that? If Lopez ever gets that fight against Lomachenko, he should have Salito carrying his belt out for him. Like, whatever belt he has, even if it's just some, like, you know, regional NABO belt or some shit. He should have Salito in his corner just to play mind games with Lomachenko. Real shit. He should really do that. And I can see him doing that too, because Lopez is that type of thinker. He thinks of creative stuff like that, like hitting the Heisman pose in the Sooners jersey after knocking out Menard. That was a really good knockout too, matter of fact. But I could see him doing that. Salito was Billy Bob in Spanish understudy for Best. Teofimo's a troller. Yeah, exactly, man. He should do that. Teofimo, if you ever hear this, do that shit. Get Salito to roll out with you with your belt, man. With your belts and the entourage. Salito and some dark sunglasses, some dark shades. On some Sith Lord shit, you know, wearing a robe or something. No, Vasil, I am your father. Yeah, man, he should do that. Yeah, exactly. I could imagine that. Him whipping out the L1 into a backflip. Oh, the L dance. Yeah, from Fortnite. Yeah, that would, man. That would. Yeah, if he does that shit, I'm never rooting against Lopez, man. Never ever. Salito gonna cut your ankles at the round. like what do you call it? Like those old wrestling managers and stuff, and like hold your ankle and stuff as the dude's getting attacked in the ring. Yeah, that'd be some G shit though. He wouldn't get caught. Yeah, man. That's it. Salito's the real slick fighter. Salito's the real. I think people use the word slick kind of incorrectly, to be honest with you. The real slick fighters are the ones that get away with shit that they shouldn't be. in terms of stuff that's bending and or breaking the rules of actual boxing. Not of technical boxing, but of actual boxing, like doing shit that could, in theory, get you disqualified. Salito didn't bend or break the rules; they didn't exist. One of them once said, "I'm really impressed with the way Inoue knocks dudes out. He must descend direct from the bloodline of Miyamoto Musashi." I never know, man. I don't always lose. I don't always lose. But when I do, I retire. Rob a deli and come back to fight. Stay Siri, my friends. You know, because Siri is his nickname. What kind of deli, though? So that's Chuck Norris' nephew. Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Salito's a hell of a character, man. You know, just Salito's very existence is kind of a bit of a troll, to be honest. Like, especially to people that are Lomachenko fans, because like they'll insist that Lomachenko is this or that, and then all you got to do to trigger these people is mention Salito. That's all you have to do. Like, just post a picture of Orlando Salito, and it just fucking ruins their day. It's over. That's all you got to do. His existence is a troll to thousands upon thousands of supposed boxing fans. Salito looks like what Vin Diesel's character in Fast and Furious should have looked like. You never had your car. Now me and the mad scientist have to rip apart the block and replace the piston rings you fried. I bet Lomachenko can't say Salito 3 times in the mirror. Salito's the candy man. Dude, they won't talk Salito. Yeah, man. That's what I'm saying. That dude, he's a walking troll. He's a walking troll, man. The best thing about it is if anybody's ever talking shit, all you gotta do is be like, "Yo, this guy, this guy beat Lomachenko," and then just post that video of him drunk off his ass getting into a fight in a bar. That's all you gotta do. That's all you gotta do. It's pretty amusing. The can man about beer. Yeah, Salito's the real can man. About those beer cans. You know, Salito's resume is actually pretty good too. I'm just taking a look at it real quick. He knocked out Robinson Castellanos back in the day. Although Castellanos only had 9 fights leading into it. He knocked out Rogers Mtagua. You know, Mtagua, of course, gave a really good fight to Wama Lopez. And he had that series of fights against Cristobal Cruz. I'm trying to find some other like hidden gem. I know there's got to be like one other guy on here that, like, whoa, shit! I never knew Salil fought that guy. No, those are the main ones. Terzak, Martinez, Francisco Vargas. As the casual power pound #1. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, ESPN, like, it's one of those things, if you repeat something enough times, people start to believe it. I think saying he's fixing to get KO'd by Ramirez. Lomachenko? Nah, I don't think Lomachenko's going to ever move to 140. I think he even knows that it's a step too far. I mean, I think the evidence was in the last two fights. You know, Linares dropped him, and Pedraza was able to scuff his face up. Pretty nasty. Have you seen the size of Pacquiao head these days? Pause. Pause, one of them ones. When did his head grow so big? Double pause. He might be on something as goddamn. That's what she said, one of them ones. Oh, man. See, that's the thing. Like, I'm not one to like to throw accusations around about people being on drugs because, I mean, people love to do that, especially when a fighter loses or whatever. Or, like, especially when a fighter beats a fighter that somebody's just a fanboy. Like, I even heard last week, like, people were saying, like, oh, somebody better test that Navarrete dude for that Mexican meat because of the way he beat up Dogbe. You know, but the thing about Pacquiao, though, is that, like, I mean, come on, man. That's the fact that his dome piece grew, like, from when he fought Ledwaba to when he fought Morales to when he fought David Diaz to when he fought Joshua Clottey. Just the fact that, like, his skull somehow grew as a complete adult is a little bit suspicious, man. It is a little bit suspicious, but I mean, I'm somebody though that I'll be the first to tell you. Nobody should be above suspicion. Nobody. I don't give a damn how many times they get tested or how many programs they sign up for. Nobody should be above suspicion because, like I've said before, Lance Armstrong is probably the most tested athlete in the history of sports. He never failed once. He never failed once, and he was also probably one of the most chemically enhanced athletes in all of sports also. So that's it. Nobody should be above suspicion, especially when there's that amount of money on the line at that very top level, that very high level. You know, where the difference between winning and losing is the difference between making a couple million for your next fight and making 100,000 your next fight. You know, just look at how much Algieri made versus Provodnikov, and then how much he made for Pacquiao. Not to say that Algieri was on anything, but like I said, nobody's above suspicion. Nobody. Yeah, things getting a little turned off by the drug and ped chat. That's the thing, man. Like I said, it can be a bit of a black hole when you start trying to throw accusations around because there's plenty of accusations for anybody and everybody to go around. You know, like my boy. I don't know, like, and I think a couple of you guys have listened to the Boxing Coalition and the podcast that I do from time to time with my boys over in the UK, and the Scottish dude on there, MV Chu. Like, he would have this saying, like, never trust a Japanese fighter outside of Japan. And I guess, like, that was him kind of hinting at the fact that, like, I guess he thinks that Japanese fighters in Japan get away with not getting tested, I guess, or taking stuff that they don't necessarily have access to outside. Or who knows? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it's just him thinking that they don't believe in themselves when they leave Japan, or like maybe it's like some other dubious thing was going on in his head with regards to some of those fighters. But regardless, the vids on Deontay's weight loss though. Yeah, that's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of a weird one. And then he's talking about like wanting to gain 35 pounds. That's an odd one. Well, and seeing one of the things too, speaking of gaining 35 pounds though, I think one of the misnomers with regards to performance enhancing drugs also is the fact that a lot of people think that they'll like make you put on weight. That's not necessarily the case. You know, there's performance enhancing drugs that will help you put on weight, become bigger, stronger, more explosive. But there's also other drugs that'll help you just be put into the zone. You get into the zone faster, for longer, and you get into the zone quicker. And if you know what the zone is, like, I don't mean the zone, the fucking streaming app. I mean the zone, like when you're in the zone, when you, it's that state of being where it's like you're peaking, you're feeling it on all levels. It's like it's like a different state of being, a different state of mind where you're, you know, it's like I'm saying, it's like you're firing all cylinders and you're you know, just sharp. You're just sharp. You know, you're ready to fucking perform. Whether that's in athletics or otherwise, you know, when you're in the zone. There's certain moments when you're in the zone and you feel, it's almost like a euphoric feeling where it's like you're just ready. You know, you're ready to fight, or you're ready to do whatever it is that you happen to do at the highest level that you could possibly do it at. The highest level of your own potential. Or even beyond that. But yeah, I mean, there's now somebody's gonna cut this video up and be like, Nietes says that all fighters on the zone are on performance enhancing drugs. To this day. Yeah, man. A week ago, you know, I took a caffeine pill, and I'm in the zone to this day. Better Google that shit. You want to know what I took? You better Google. You better Google that shit. Yeah, that stuff is good, man. Deontay Wilder, man. The zone. Yeah, though. You know, speaking of the zone, like I mentioned earlier, though, to bring it back to the beginning, I do hope they start to get the rights for some of these fights overseas. Honestly, there's really no reason that they shouldn't have got the fight yesterday between Artem Dalakian and Gregorio Lebron. I'm still looking for footage of that fight. Matter of fact, apparently Dalakian scored a TKO, so that's good for him. Really, that's a really good win for him. You know, I wasn't that impressed with his win over Valoria. Valoria tagged him a couple of times, hurt him a couple of times on Dalakian's way to outpointing him. But to beat LeBron is pretty good. That's a good win. That's a good win. Because I did think that LeBron gave a lot of trouble to Chitpattanna. Matter of fact, if you go back into my archive, I thought that he got robbed against Chitpattanna. I thought he beat him both times. They fought twice. And then Tyen was able to get a fight against Kazuto Ioka, where he actually dropped the Ioka on his way to Ioka, eventually stopping him. So, no, that's a good win. That's a good win for Dalakian. You know, hopefully he gets a unification or something of that sort at some point in the near future. Or maybe like a fight with one of these UK guys, you know, that are trying to go after a title. Maybe Andrew Sebi can go after him. I think Andrew Sebi could beat Dalakian, matter of fact. Because Dalakian tries to fight in a similar manner to Selby, but I don't think he's as quick as Selby. I think Selby can outspeed him and be on his way to outpointing him and do it that way. I'm not sure how big Dalakian is in the Ukraine, though. That's probably part of the reason why I want to see the footage of Dalakian and LeBron, see how packed the audience was, see if that dude is a draw over there. But I think that would be a good way for Selby to go. I don't think Selby should try to rematch Rosales because that guy's dangerous, man. I think Rosales is gonna put some hands on Charlie Edwards. Matter of fact, when does that fight happen? Christopher Rosales and Charlie Edwards. I know that it's supposed to be soon. Wait a minute, that's next week, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It is next week. It is next week at the O2. Yeah, that'll be fun. Not very fun for Charlie, but it'll be fun. That's the thing. I actually think Edwards is a pretty good fighter, but like honestly, like if your fight, like I guess your fight may like you can make an argument that your fight is ducking Edwards too, because honestly, I think Edwards would probably give your fight a pretty good fight considering how he looked last time against Israel Gonzalez, but that'd be going into a bit of a black hole though. Calify, that guy is somebody that I'd rather not waste too much time speaking about, considering how little he's really done to progress his own career, boxing as a whole, the super flyweight division as a whole, etc. All right. All right. I think we've stretched this one for about as long as it should be. Fangs comes in with Luis Neri, though. Luis Neri. Luis Neri is entertaining as hell, man. I like Luis Neri. Man. Like, it's, or at least I like watching him fight. Put it that way. I like watching him fight. He's entertaining as hell. Because when you're watching him, somebody's getting knocked out. Might be him at some point, but somebody's getting knocked out. He should probably give up bantamweight though. Like he should really just fight at 122, because I don't think he can healthily make 118. And I think at some point, if he does eventually fight somebody like Inoue, he's going to get knocked out because he's not going to be healthy for the weight anyway in the first place. And then Inoue is going to tag him with something quick, fast, and in a hurry. But I think maybe eventually they'll meet up at 122 or 126 though, because I could see Inoue going for the gusto, trying to like prove overtly that he's a pound for pounder and trying to win some more titles and some more weight classes. But yeah, no, Neri should be at 122 or 126, and I think there's a good opening for him to potentially win some titles there. I think Neri versus Ray Vargas would be a very good fight, and I'm sure that the WBC would be more than happy to oblige him by making such a fight. It's a dangerous fight still too, because Ray Vargas, he throws some bombs in there, but I think it's a winnable one for Neri. Daniel Roman out there, TJ Donnie's out there. Yeah, man, Neri's got some openings. He's got some windows. Neri versus Navarrete would be incredible. Now that'd be a fight. That would be a fight. Neri and Navarrete, man. Where did those guys throw? Yeah. I'm gonna close it up now. Thanks. I think this one's ran its course. Gotten well off topic now at this point, but I'm gonna close this one up. Matter of fact, let me post that exhibition video one more time, just in case for anybody who wasn't able to catch it earlier. Really good little sparring exhibition, 2 rounds between Shiro, the WBC light flyweight champion, and Hiroto Kyoguchi, the former IBF strawweight champion. Both of them fighting here on these New Year's cards. Shiro versus Saul Juarez, former title challenger, and Hiroto Kyoguchi moving up to fight Hekkie Budler for Budler's own WBA 108-pound championship. So hope you guys check that out. Hope you guys enjoy it, and I hope you guys enjoy these cards once they come across. I'm definitely going to do a live stream for the December 30th card. December 31st might be a little bit more of an ask. It kind of depends on exactly what's going on in my personal and my work life and everything. I might be busy, I might not be. If I'm not, then I'll jump on for a stream. But if I am, then I'll just do a bit of a post fight. Try and review it for all you guys, and bring a bit of a panel on so that I can get some more insight into it. But that's gonna do it for this one, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.